I remember when I was a kid hearing about an animal that looked like a rabbit but with antlers like a deer and just assuming it was a real animal. I was learning about weird and wonderful animals from around the world pretty much every week, so why wouldn't the jackalope be real? I mean, have you seen the duck-billed platypus or the narwhal? The cool thing about being an artist is that you get to take that sense of wonder you had as a child and bring fantasy and folklore into the real world. So this week I'm making a jackalope girl with a bit of a cottagecore vibe and some fun little secret details that you won't see on the photos. I've chosen a light grey cotton for the base fabric. I want the rabbit ears to stand up without being wired, so I've backed the cotton with a lightweight interfacing to give it a bit more structure. The easiest way I found to sew all the pieces and get all those little details right is to mark everything out in pencil and sew around the pencil line before cutting anything out. Then I keep the seam allowance as small as I can and use pinking shears around any tight curves to stop any puckering. I snipped a little bit too close to the seam on the side of the torso, so when I started stuffing it, it kind of pulled apart a little bit. No need to panic though, this area will be hidden under the bodice, so before it gets any worse I'll stick a little scrap of cotton over it with some acid-free tacky glue. If it was in an area that was going to be left visible, I'd have to scrap it and make a new piece, but no need this time. The patch will reinforce the seam, then it'll keep its shape while I stuff the rest of the torso. Then there'll be no sign of it on the finished doll. I'll let that dry while I stuff the other parts. I'm using some polyester staple fibre, which is a bit denser than standard toy stuffing, so you get a firmer, heavier feel. The torso in particular needs to be very firm so it holds the neck and shoulder joints. You'll see why later. The patch has held together well and I've had no more mishaps, so I close the seam with ladder stitch using some top stitch thread. The antlers are made from a pipe cleaner. I've unravelled a length of super chunky weight yarn. I start in the centre and wrap it around the antler right up to the ends and needle felt it just a little bit to hold it in place. The yarn tends to stick quite well to the fluff on the pipe cleaner, so it's a lot easier to cover than bare wire. This is an acrylic yarn from the Signet Seriously Chunky range. I don't use wool, but this one is very wool-like, so it needle felts well and it's a good alternative. I've kept the shape quite simple, mostly because I don't want the antlers to be too big and bulky, but also because this is really fiddly and it takes forever. These will be stitched onto the head in front of the rabbit ears, then I'll style the hair over the bit in the middle, so what we end up with is the appearance of two separate antlers sprouting from the head. I think most animals would look good with antlers, even humans, though I'm not sure I could get away with this look around Abergavenny. I'm a big High Lung fan, by the way, in case you hadn't guessed. I've picked out some decorative metal beads to joint the arms and legs. I wasn't sure whether to make the legs from plain cotton for this one, but to be honest I feel like the stripy legs have become such an integral part of my style, it's a bit weird now if one of my dolls doesn't have them. I found that the little beads I'm using for the arms had a few rough edges. I don't want those snagging the thread and wearing it over time, so I'm giving them all a quick file with a bead reamer. These are really handy little tools to have. I'll leave a link in the description. The bead reamer has diamond particles in the tips, so it'll work well on most materials. I think the only beads I haven't had much success with are glass, as they chip too easily and tend to snap the thread. So I try and avoid using glass beads anywhere I need to put a lot of tension on them. Again, I'm using Gutterman top stitch thread, which is pretty strong. As long as there are no sharp edges, it'll withstand quite a lot of tension. The neck is jointed between the button on the back and another one on top of the head. You need quite a lot of tension for this joint. I want the head to have a bit of side-to-side tilt, but with the weight of the rabbit ears and the antlers, I want to make sure it's quite stable and it's not going to flop to the side. This is why the torso needs to be stuffed really firmly. If it's too soft, the neck will just collapse when you pull the thread tight. I've mixed a purpley berry shade in acrylic paint to give her some lace-up boots. I've added a bit of titanium white to the mix so it's nice and opaque and we won't have the dark grey stripes showing through. Initially these were going to be ankle length boots, but I felt like they needed to be longer, so I'm bringing them a bit higher up the calf. It'll mean more lacing, but I think the effect will be worth it. I'm using some waxed linen thread for the laces. I marked out some pinholes first, then it's just a matter of stitching through them like you're lacing up a tiny pair of boots. If you're enjoying this video, by the way, please don't forget to hit the like button and let me know. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can now click the join button and become a channel member. There are also some links to some of my dolls and other art below the video. A little spot of tacky glue stops the laces coming undone. While that's drying, I'll start on the face. I shade around where the button eyes will be with Derwent Chromaflow pencils, which make a nice dark shadow. Most of this will be covered, so the effect is subtle, but it makes a big difference to the end result. I think this pencil has been dropped at some point, which I don't recommend as they are very soft. Yep, it's gone. Time to dig out my trusty sharpener. Much better. I want to get this as dark as I can, then I'll go over it with a blending pencil to smooth it out and soften the edges. I've had a few people asking what I use to seal the shading. I just use an artist fixative spray, the same as you'd use for fixing pencil or pastels on paper. Some of them can be a bit sticky, but I really like the Winsor & Newton one. I'll put a link to it in the description. I've tidied the laces up a bit and attached the legs to the body with a little stitch at each side. I'm going to sew the ears on now because I can't wait to see how they look. The arms and the antlers will go on later. I'm just whip stitching the ears in place. The hair will cover this bit, so they don't need to be too neat. They just need to be secure so they stay put. They always look huge at this point, but by the time I put the rest of the doll together, they'll look more in proportion. If you saw my pastel goth commission, you'll recognise these buttons. They're a lovely antique silver finish, so they have a bit of a vintage look. I like to use the buttons with 4 holes, so you can get that cross thread in the middle. The buttons are stitched right through from the back of the head, so the tension holds them nice and flat to the fabric. The stitches on the back will be covered by the hair. I'm aiming to get them right in the centre of the shading. It can be a little bit tricky, but a long doll needle and some good strong thread makes it easier. The line detail is done with Derwent Line Maker pens. These are permanent and waterproof, so I won't need to seal this with anything. I might add a little bit of shading to the nose and mouth though, so that will just need a little bit of fixative spray to stop it smudging. I've chosen some deep, dusky rose-coloured cotton for the dress with a tiny subtle print. This fabric does have a bit of a stretch, so I've ironed some interfacing onto the piece for the bodice to help it keep its shape. There are a couple of stubborn creases, but I'll need to iron the hems anyway, so I'll go over them again and hopefully that'll smooth them out. Because of the way my dolls are constructed, I don't use a proper dressmaking method. Making fixed clothing is more like mini upholstery. The bodice is a single piece. I've sewn a couple of darts in the sides to fit the waist. Then it's just a matter of adjusting the position until it fits and ladder stitching it up the back. The arms will be stitched on afterwards, and the shoulder joints actually help to hold the dress in place. For the skirt, I've made a simple tube of fabric with some gathered lace around the bottom. I also decided to make her some underwear. These are just a single piece of lace joined up the back and sewn across the bottom, leaving a bit of space for the legs. I've made them quite big so they can be gathered up around the waist like bloomers. I decided on the spur of the moment to make her a little rabbit tail. I just needle felted a few strands of super chunky yarn together and brushed them out. The tail will be hidden under the dress, but I kind of like adding a few little secret hidden details that you can't see on the photos. It somehow makes the doll feel a bit more special. You won't tell anyone, will you? The shoulders are jointed with the thread that goes right through the body and through the beads at the top of the arms. I stitched through them a couple of times to make sure they're nice and secure, then fastened the thread off underneath the back of the bodice. I'm using some super chunky acrylic yarn for the hair. This one is from the Signet Metallics range. I think this one has been discontinued, but you might still be able to find it in some places. I'm needle felting it in place with the Clover pen style tool and some 38 gauge needles. This all needs unravelling and brushing out, then I'll attach the antlers. I love how silky and shiny this yarn looks when it's brushed out. I fixed the antlers in place with a couple of stitches. I just need to style the hair a bit and she's almost ready. I've added a cute little bead to hold her hair in place. Now she just needs one more thing. I felt like she needed a foraging bag to go with the cottagecore theme, so I made this from a piece of felt. It's a very long time since I tried doing blanket stitch on anything, and I'm a little bit rusty, but it's all coming back to me now. I think that turned out pretty cute. It should just slip on over her shoulder, then she's ready for her next adventure. I've named this little one Martha Cottontail. Making mythical creatures gives me a chance to experiment and try lots of different doll making techniques. So if you'd like to see some more of the little characters I've made, I'll put a playlist on screen here that I think you'll enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Bye.